Hey there. Tonight, we're diving into something that'll make you deeply thankful for that fridge humming in your kitchen. We're rewinding to Victorian England, where people had to get wildly inventive with what they ate just to stay alive. Oh, and if you're vibing with these stories, smash that like or subscribe. Seriously, I'm dying to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment with your city and local time. It blows my mind imagining folks drifting off to this across time zones. All right, cozy up. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your body melt into whatever you're lying on. We're time traveling to Victorian England. So congrats. You've just woken up in London circa 1850. Your eyes flutter open in the grimy half-light of dawn. But the first thing you notice? The smell. A punch of coal smoke, damp wool, and something far worse. The chamber pot in the corner, begging to be emptied. You're sprawled on a lumpy straw mattress. Not the scratchy wool you've heard about. That'd be luxury. This is a cotton sack stuffed with whatever straw your family could scavenge. It's damp, it prickles, and it's definitely hosting uninvited guests that nip at you in the night. Your stomach growls instantly. That hollow, gnawing ache? Your constant companion here. Your fingers are icy as you push aside the thin blanket. The room's chill slaps you. No central heating, just the ghost of last night's coal fire. Long dead because coal costs money, and money's in short supply. Outside, street vendors are already barking. Hot eels. Get your hot eels. A woman's voice, ragged from years of shouting, cuts through the walls. London's waking up, and with it, the daily scramble to scrounge enough food to keep going. Good news. You're alive in one of history's most transformative eras. The Industrial Revolution is reshaping everything, and Queen Victoria rules the mightiest empire the world's ever seen. Bad news. Unless you're aristocracy or climbing the middle-class ladder, your relationship with food is complicated. And by complicated, I mean you're hungry. All the time. The Victorian era, stretching from 1837, when Victoria took the throne, to her death in 1901, was a tidal wave of change. And nowhere was that clearer than in what people ate and how they got it. You swing your legs over the bed, bare feet hitting the icy floorboards. They creak under your weight. If you're lucky, you live in a cramped apartment with just your immediate family. If not, you might be sharing a single room with multiple families, hot bunking shifts in the same bed. One person clocks out, another slides into their still warm spot. You coming down for breakfast? A voice calls from below. Your mother, already up for hours. Breakfast. The word alone twists your stomach. What's on the table today? If you're fortunate, bread. Not the soft, pillowy stuff you know. Victorian bread is dense, heavy, meant to fill. For many, it's the day's main calories. You shuffle down the groaning stairs. The kitchen, if you can call it that, is just a hearth with a pot dangling over it. No fridge, no stove, just fire, if you can afford fuel. Tea's brewing. Your mother says, not looking up from the pot. But this isn't tea as you know it. It's weak, watery, the leaves reused until they're ghosts of flavor. The rich toss leaves after one steep, the poor wring them dry. Any bread? You ask, trying to mask the hope. She nods to a small loaf. Half now, half tonight. You tear off your portion. It's tough, stale, but it's food. You dunk it in your tea to soften it. A classic move. As you chew, you think about the day ahead and your next meal. If there is one. Now, here's the thing. The Victorian era wasn't the same for everyone. What you ate hinged on three things. Your social class, city versus countryside, when in Victoria's reign you lived. Because here's the kicker. Food in Victorian England changed drastically from the era's start to finish. The early Victorian period? Brutal. The 1840s were dubbed the Hungry Forties due to shortages and sky-high prices. But by Victoria's twilight years, even working-class folks ate better than their ancestors. You finish your bread and tea. Your mother hands you a cloth bundle. For lunch, she says. Don't eat it all at once. Inside, another hunk of bread, maybe a smear of dripping, congealed fat from yesterday's meat, if you had any. This might be it until evening. As you step outside, Victorian London assaults your senses. The noise is deafening. Vendors shrieking, horse hooves clattering, carriage wheels grinding cobblestones, factory whistles howling in the distance. The smell? Let's just say modern sewage systems weren't fully operational yet. But amid the chaos, there's something surprising. Food everywhere. Street food. Victorian cities, especially London, boasted an insane variety of cheap eats. Not that you could afford much, but the smells taunt you. Penny a bowl. Hot eels. Penny a bowl. That woman again. You glance over. A vendor with a steaming metal can. Inside, chopped eels boiled in herby broth. For many working-class Londoners, this was a quick, hot, semi-nutritious meal they could swing. The Thames teemed with eels back then. Cheap, abundant, a poor man's staple. Chopped, boiled with herbs, served hot in broth thickened with flour. Fancy version? Jellied eels. Same dish, cooled until the broth sets into wobbly gelatin. Sounds gross now, but in Victorian London, comfort food. You keep walking, passing more vendors. A man hawking whelks, pickled sea snails. Another selling sheep's trotters, literally boiled sheep's feet. A woman peddles jacket potatoes, split open, steam curling into the cold air. This was Victorian fast food. Quick, portable, filling, and cheap. For many workers, buying street food beat trying to cook in a single room with no proper kitchen. Your stomach growls as you pass them by. The penny in your pocket must be saved for something more substantial later. As you walk, let's talk Victorian class divides, because they were harsh, especially around food. At the top, aristocracy and the ultra-wealthy. These folks ate like kings, multi-course meals, exotic imports, out-of-season fruits from heated greenhouses. A dinner party might feature soup, fish, multiple meat dishes, desserts, fine wines. The middle class mimicked this, with fewer courses. Their Sunday roast was the week's culinary highlight, leftovers stretched for days. Then, everyone else. The working class, the poor, the desperate. For them, food was function. Get enough calories to survive. Taste, variety, nutrition, luxuries. You're likely in this last group. Food isn't about pleasure, it's survival. By midday, your stomach's screaming. You find a quiet spot to unwrap your bundle. The bread's harder now, but the dripping adds fat and flavor. You force yourself to eat only half, rewrapping the rest. Boy, what you got there? A street urchin, more ragged than you, eyes your food. You turn away, guarding your meal. Hunger makes everyone selfish. Just bread, you mutter. The kid lingers, hopeful, but eventually scampers off. You feel a pang of guilt, but not enough to share. That's Victorian poverty. Everyone's hungry, but you can only care for yourself, maybe your family. As afternoon fades, you pass a wealthier neighborhood. Through a basement window, you spy a cook working. The smell? Heavenly. Some kind of meat stew. Your mouth waters against your will. That's another Victorian reality. The visible gap between abundance and scarcity. The rich didn't just eat differently. They lived in a different food universe. Evening comes. You trudge home, exhausted. Your mother has the pot going again. Tonight, vegetable soup, mostly cabbage and onions, maybe a potato if you're lucky. A scrap of bacon or salt pork might flavor it. The fat and salt transforming humble veggies into something almost satisfying. Cabbage was a working-class lifeline. Cheap, year-round, filling. Isabella Beacon, Victorian domestic guru, even recommended fried cabbage as an economical family meal. But it wasn't just cabbage, onions, leeks, turnips, carrots. These were the backbone of poor diets. Not exciting, but they kept you alive. You slump at the table, soaking your rock-hard bread in soup to soften it. It's warm, something in your belly, though you'll be hungry again by morning. Will we have meat this Sunday, you ask? Sunday dinner was when even poor families try to have meat, if they could. She sighs. We'll see what the butcher's got late Saturday. Maybe shin or cheek for stew. That was the reality. Buying the cheapest cuts, the bits the wealthy wouldn't touch. Shin, cheek, offal, liver, kidney, heart. These needed hours of cooking to be edible, but they were protein. If meat was truly out of reach, eggs, if you kept chickens, cheese, often sold for cash, or beans and soups. After dinner, your mother makes a final pot of tea, weaker than the mornings, the leaves now flavorless ghosts. With a sprinkle of precious sugar, it's a small luxury. This micromanagement of food was survival. Nothing was wasted. Stale bread became pudding. Bones were boiled repeatedly for stock. Veggie scraps went into soups. Tea leaves were dried and reused until nothing remained. You drag yourself to bed, the straw mattress almost tolerable now that you're dead tired. Your stomach isn't full. It's rarely full, but the ache has dulled. You drift off, dreaming of Sunday's maybe meal. In your mind, it's a feast, though in reality, it'll be modest. But anticipation is its own comfort in hard times. Outside, the last food vendors pack up. Hot eels, penny pies, fades into the city's endless grumble. That's the daily rhythm of Victorian working-class food. Not the lavish dinner parties from period dramas, but a constant hustle to scrape together enough calories to keep moving. Bread, veggies, weak tea, occasional meat. Simple, but precious. You shift on the mattress as carriage wheels rattle outside. Your body relaxes, just a bit, as markets begin prepping for tomorrow. Fishmongers arranging their catch, bakers firing ovens, farmers loading wagons with fresh produce. Morning light seeps through the grimy window again. Another day in Victorian London. Your stomach wakes before you do, that familiar emptiness already announcing itself. But today's different. Today's market day. You stretch on the straw mattress, feeling stalks poke through the fabric. The air is cold enough to see your breath. Winter was brutal for the poor. No heat, hunger gnawing alongside the chill. Downstairs, your mother's already moving. The scrape of the fire, the clank of the kettle. The daily grind begins anew. But wait, there's a new smell this morning. Something sweet. Your nose isn't playing tricks. There's a treat. You bolt downstairs, more eager than usual. Your mother's at the table, carefully dividing something. She looks up, smiling, tired but real. Mr. Wilson at the bakery gave me the broken bits, she explains. Said they were too damaged to sell, but still good. On the table, pieces of cake or sweet bread. Nothing fancy by modern standards, but in Victorian London, gold. Just the edges of a plum cake, she says, pushing a piece your way. But it'll make the tea better. Sweets in the Victorian era weren't everyday items. Sugar's history was tangled with colonialism and slavery. By the mid-1800s, it was slightly more affordable, but still a luxury for working-class families. A sweet treat was just that, a treat, not a given. You take a bite with a sip of tea. The sweetness explodes on your tongue, shocking after days of bland bread and cabbage. There's a hint of dried fruit, not fresh, but plumped in baking. It's heaven. This moment, this tiny joy, tells us something vital about Victorian food. The stark contrast between daily survival and rare indulgence made those treats meaningful. As you savor the cake, let's unpack sugar's wild evolution in Victorian England, because it's a fascinating saga that shaped their world and ours. Early 1800s, sugar was expensive, imported from colonies via brutal slave labor. The wealthy used it lavishly. Elaborate desserts flaunted status. The poor maybe tasted it on holidays. Then came the 1833 abolition of slavery, just before Victoria's reign, disrupting sugar supplies and spiking prices. But the 1874 Sugar Act slashed import taxes, suddenly making sugar almost accessible to ordinary people. The result? A sweet tooth revolution. Candy and confections exploded in popularity. By Victoria's end, sweets were mass-produced on an unprecedented scale. You finish your cake, lingering on the last crumbs. It's market day, bigger than usual. The streets buzz with vendors from farther afield, offering more variety and better prices. Thought we might treat ourselves, your mother says, setting down a bowl of real porridge, not just bread soaked in tea. With your dock earnings and yesterday's tuppence, we could get something special. The porridge is plain, water, no milk or sugar, but it's hot and filling. Oats were cheap fuel for working bodies. Scottish Victorians especially relied on them. What kind of special? You ask between bites. She smiles, cryptic. We'll see. But maybe cheese or an orange. Haven't had one in years. These hints reveal Victorian priorities. Cheese was nutritious but pricey. Oranges were exotic winter luxuries. Breakfast done, you prep for the market, a rare outing. Even in hard lives, these small joys mattered. The streets are packed, buzzing with energy. Market day was social as much as practical, a chance to see neighbors, hear news, briefly escape the grind. The market itself is a sensory overload. Vendors shouting, customers haggling, colors and smells colliding. Butchers, fishmongers, bakers, spice merchants, the full spectrum of Victorian food commerce. Your mother navigates like a pro, assessing value. She grabs root veggies, cheap, filling, stored well, then splurges on butter, a luxury. Most poor families used beef dripping. Penny's worth, she tells the vendor, who cuts a tiny portion. It's not much, but it'll add richness to meals. A crowd gathers at a stall selling gingerbread figures, shaped like animals, people, objects. The spicy sweet smell is irresistible. One small one, your mother allows a rare treat. You pick a horse-shaped cookie. That first bite, revelation. Sweet from molasses, not pricey sugar. Warm with ginger, soft, not crisp. This moment, sharing a simple sweet with your mom, captures something essential. Food is culture, not just survival. Next, she eyes a fruit seller's oranges. Bright, exotic, expensive, tuppence each. She hesitates. That money could buy filling food, but finally caves. We'll share one. The orange is ceremonial, saved for later. As you walk on, a pea soup vendor calls. Penny a bowl. It's hearty, hot, perfect for a damp day. You each buy one, eating standing up, no need to light your own fire. Then, a commotion, a canned food salesman demoing modern food preservation. He opens a can of peaches, offering samples. The fruit's sweetness is astounding. Imagine, fruit year-round, your mother murmurs. By Victoria's end, this dream would inch closer for the working class. Market hall secured, you head home. Vegetables, butter, cheese, bacon, and that precious orange. Your mother stores everything meticulously. Damp cloth for cheese, hung bacon for airflow. Midday dinner is bread with a scrape of butter and cheese, a huge upgrade. Then, you're off to find work, landing a construction gig hauling materials. Evening brings a proper meal, veggie soup with bacon, bread, cheese, and finally, the orange. Peeling it fills the room with citrus perfume. She splits it perfectly in half. The first segment bursts on your tongue, so sweet, so tangy, juice dribbling down your chin. You savor each bite. This is Victorian food beyond survival. Pleasure, sharing, memory. As night falls, you sip slightly stronger tea, another small luxury. We've eaten well today, your mother says. Better than many. She's right. Through work, hustle, and rare treats, you've tasted abundance in a life of scarcity. Not every day is like this, but today, food is more than fuel. It's joy. You climb to bed, the straw mattress almost comfortable. Outside, London hums. Inside, the orange's ghost lingers on your tongue. Your body sinks into the mattress, exhaustion and fullness pulling you under. The day's struggles and tiny triumphs blur as sleep takes you, dreaming of a world where no one goes hungry. The next morning arrives with an unusual crispness in the air, the kind that nips at your fingertips and reddens your nose. You blink awake to the sound of church bells ringing across the rooftops, their metallic chimes slicing through the usual market day clamor. Sunday. The word alone carries weight, a brief respite from the grinding routine, though never truly a day of rest for the poor. Your stomach, ever the impatient alarm clock, growls before your eyes fully adjust to the dim light. The straw mattress prickles as you shift, its uneven lumps now familiar contours against your back. Downstairs, the fire's faint crackle and the clatter of a spoon against cast iron signal your mother's morning ritual. Up already, she calls, her voice hoarse from yesterday's laundry steam. Wash your face. We're late for church. You drag yourself upright, joints protesting. Sunday meant your least ragged shirt, still patched at the elbows, scrubbed cheeks, water so cold it steals your breath, and the solemn ritual of not appearing destitute before the parish's judgmental eyes. The kitchen smells of charred bread, and something faintly animal, the sheep's head, already simmering in its pot. Your mother's sleeves are rolled up, her forearms shiny with steam and grease. "Take this to the baker's," she orders, thrusting a cloth-wrapped parcel at you. "Tell Mrs. Higgins it's for the pudding crust." Inside, a knob of yesterday's precious butter, traded for the privilege of using the baker's oven later. Such barter systems kept the poor afloat, a dab of butter for oven space, a mended dress for a bowl of drippings. The streets are eerily still compared to market day's chaos. Shuttered storefronts. No fishmongers bellowing, no flower girls hawking posies. Only the clip-clop of wealthy families' carriages en route to grander churches, their horses' breath fogging the air like tiny locomotives. Mrs. Higgins' bakery is a universe of warmth and yeasty perfume. The woman herself, flour-dusted and pink-cheeked, barks orders at a scullery made stoking the brick oven. The pudding can go in after the loaves," she grunts, pocketing your butter without a glance. "Mind your back by 3 or it'll burn." On your return, you pass a spectacle that halts you mid-step. A street urchin, no older than 6, gnawing on a pineapple rind discarded from some aristocrat's kitchen. The exotic fruit, a status symbol for the rich, is utterly foreign to you beyond penny magazine illustrations. The boy's grin is sticky with juice, his bare feet blue with cold. The contrast stings. His treasure is another man's trash. Church is its own theater. You file into the musty pews among other working-class families, their Sunday best clothes smelling of mothballs and lye soap. The vicar's sermon drones on about contentment and poverty, while the landed gentry's silk skirts rustle in the front rows, their stomachs comfortably full from breakfasts of kidneys and kedgeree. "Amen," you mutter, eyeing the collection plate wearily. Your mother drops in a farthing, a genuine sacrifice. The plate returns brimming with shillings from the wealthy, their coins clinking like a slap to the face. Back home, the sheep's head has transformed. The kitchen steams with the broth's rich scent, bone marrow and thyme, and the faint iron tang of blood. Your mother attacks the skull with practiced hands, tweezing out every shred of meat from cheekbones, jaw, even the tongue, now peeled and sliced thin as parchment. "Fetch the baker's oven now," she commands, wrapping the brain-stuffed pudding in cloth. You sprint through the cold, the pudding heavy in your arms, its warmth seeping through the fabric. Mrs. Higgins shoves it into the oven's ember-cradled hollow with a long peel. "Mind that scum don't steal it," she warns, jerking her chin at a cluster of hungry-looking boys loitering outside. The wait is agony. You hover near the bakery's heat, stomach growling at the aroma of rising loaves. When the pudding emerges, golden brown and faintly thumping when tapped, you nearly weep with anticipation. The Sunday meal is sacred. At the wobbly kitchen table, your mother portions out the feast. A slice of the pudding, its crust flaking under the fork, the inside studded with creamy brain and herbs. Stewed tongue in gravy, gelatinous and rich. The last of the market carrots, roasted in bacon fat until caramelized. A wedge of yesterday's cheese, its edges gone crumbly, but the center still lush. For one fleeting hour, you eat like royalty. The meat is tender, the gravy so thick it coats your tongue. Even the carrots taste decadent, their sweetness heightened by the precious fat. Save the bones for tomorrow's broth. Your mother notes, sucking marrow from a vertebrae. Nothing wasted. Ever. The orange appears like a miracle. She peels it slowly, the citrus oil spraying into the air. The segments glow like stained glass against the chipped plate. You each take half, letting the juice burst over your tongues. Vibrant, sunlit, a taste that belongs to another world. "Remember this when times are lean," she murmurs. And you do. You commit the meal to memory. The crisp pudding, the unctuous tongue, the shock of orange sweetness. A day's worth of labor and strategy distilled into this. Evening falls with a contented quiet. The fire dims. The leftover pudding is wrapped in muslin for tomorrow. You climb to bed, your belly rounded for once. The straws itch barely noticeable. Outside, a drunk warbles a hymn off-key. Somewhere, a wealthy household's silver clatters against fine china. But here, in the dark, You press the memory of orange zest under your fingernails to your nose. One last scent of paradise before sleep. Monday morning arrives with a vengeance, the kind of damp, bone-chilling dawn that seeps into your joints and makes every movement feel like wading through molasses. The church bell's Sunday cheer has been replaced by the factory whistle's shrill scream, yanking London's working class back to reality. You wake to the sound of retching. Your mother kneels over the chamber pot, her body convulsing. The sheep's head, yesterday's treasure, has turned traitor in the night. Don't touch the leftovers, she gasps between heaves. The pudding sits on the shelf, its crust now speckled with ominous green flecks. The brain must have gone off. Food poisoning was the shadow haunting every Victorian meal. Without refrigeration, meat spoiled quickly, milk turned in hours, butter rancidified by noon in summer. The poor, forced to buy cheap, questionable cuts, bore the brunt of this daily Russian roulette. You help her wipe her mouth with a rag, then tiptoe past the contaminated food. Breakfast is just tea today, weak as dishwater, the leaves reused for the 5th time. The warmth does little for the hollow feeling in your gut. I'll try the docks again, you say, avoiding looking at the deadly pudding. Hunger gnaws, but the memory of your mother's violent illness keeps your hands off the spoiled feast. Outside, the city exhales its workers in one great gray wave. Men in flat caps, women with shawls pulled tight, children still rubbing sleep from their eyes, all marching toward factories, shops, construction sites. You join the current flowing eastward, where the Thames smells like rotting fish and coal smoke. The hiring foreman at the docks takes one look at your slight frame and laughs. Christ, boy, you'd snap like a twig under them sugar sacks. But when a gang of Irish laborers fails to show, likely still drunk from Sunday, he grudgingly waves you toward a mountain of crates labeled Jamaican ginger, property of Cadbury. The work is backbreaking. Each crate weighs more than you do, the rough wood splintering your palms as you haul them from ship to warehouse. By midday, your arms shake with exhaustion, your stomach growling loud enough for the other workers to hear. Here, a grizzled docker named O'Leary shoves a biscuit into your hand. Hardtack. Soak it in your tea, or you'll break teeth. The biscuit resembles a pale, pockmarked brick. You gnaw experimentally, and nearly chip a molar. Hardtack, or ship's biscuit, was the Victorian equivalent of energy bars, flour, water, and salt-baked rock-hard to survive months at sea. Cheap, durable, and about as appetizing as plaster. Cheers, you croak, pocketing it for later. The dockers chuckle at your naivety. Wait till you try the Weevil version, one jokes, slapping your shoulder hard enough to stagger you. At lunch break, the men pull out their meals with the solemnity of card players revealing hands. O'Leary has cold sausage and pickled onions wrapped in newspaper. Another shows off a mutton pasty oozing gravy. You retreat to a quiet corner with your hardtack, soaking it in a tin cup of overbrewed tea until it softens into something resembling edible paste. The afternoon brings a new horror, molasses barrels. Sticky, leaking, impossible to grip. You're soon coated up to your elbows in the treacly goo. When a barrel cracks open, the foreman barks at you to save what you can. You drop to your knees, scooping handfuls of the warm, fly-specked syrup into buckets. Take some home if you want. The foreman sighs, seeing your pathetic efforts. Bloody waste otherwise. You leave the docks at dusk with 2 pennies wages, and a hat brimming with molasses scraped from the cobblestones. The sweet, smoky smell clings to you like a second skin. Your mother is still pale but upright, stirring a pot of onion soup when you return. Her eyes widen at your loot. Black gold, she exclaims, already calculating. Molasses, the byproduct of sugar refining, was the poor man's sweetener. Too bitter and impure for wealthy tables, but a treasure trove of calories for the desperate. That night's supper is the most surreal yet. Onion soup with a drizzle of molasses for depth. The last of Sunday's bread, miraculously still good. A slice of cheese salvaged from the uncontaminated portion. The flavors shouldn't work, savory onions and bittersweet syrup, but your starved body doesn't care. You lick the bowl clean, then scrape the molasses from your arms like a bear harvesting honey. Tomorrow, your mother says, eyes gleaming in the firelight, will make treacle tart. You fall asleep with sticky fingers, the factory whistles replaced by the rhythmic drip-drip of molasses from your hat onto the floor. Somewhere beneath the exhaustion and lingering nausea, there's a spark of triumph. Another day outwitted hunger. Dawn creeps in like a thief on Tuesday, gray fingers of light stealing through the cracks in the shutters. The molasses hat has left a sticky puddle on the floor overnight, now swarming with ants marching in disciplined lines toward the sweet prize. Your mother shoos them away with her broom, muttering curses under her breath. Up with you, she snaps, nudging your straw mattress with her foot. The baker's expecting that bowl back by 7. You blink crust from your eyes. The room smells of burnt sugar and sickness, a cloying mixture that clings to the back of your throat. Yesterday's food poisoning lingers in your mother's pallor, the way she presses a hand to her stomach when she thinks you aren't looking. Breakfast is a meager affair, watery porridge with a scant teaspoon of molasses stirred in for sweetness. The treacle's dark swirls resemble blood in the pale gruel, but the sugar rush is immediate, like a shot of liquid courage straight to your veins. Mind that doesn't spoil too, your mother warns as you scrape the bowl clean. Sugar was a fickle friend, could sweeten a bitter life or ferment in your gut like last night's disaster. The streets are slick with last night's rain, the cobblestones gleaming like wet teeth in the early light. You pass a street sweeper collecting horse manure into a barrow, free for the taking if you've a garden, he calls cheerfully. City ordinances required manure removal to prevent disease, but enterprising souls sold it to suburban gardeners as fertilizer. Even shit had value in Victorian London. Mrs. Higgins' bakery is already bustling when you arrive, the bell above the door jangling like an alarm. The plump baker barely glances up from kneading a mountain of dough, her arms powdered white to the elbows. Bowls by the sink, she barks. And tell your ma I've bones for soup if she wants em. The promised bones turn out to be mostly bare knuckles from Sunday's roast beef, but your mother's eyes light up when you present them. Marrow bones, she exclaims, weighing them in her palm like gold ingots. While she sets a pot simmering, you're dispatched to the coal yard with the last of yesterday's dock wages. The coal man, a soot-blackened specter straight from a Dickens novel, measures out a scant bucketful. Price went up, he grunts, spitting a black glob into the gutter. Bloody railway tariffs. You trudge home with your precious cargo, the coal dust already staining your collar gray. The bones have transformed the kitchen into something magical. The rich, meaty perfume of broth fills every corner, driving out the lingering sickness smell. Now for the tart, your mother announces, rolling up her sleeves. The promised treacle tart is an exercise in poverty alchemy. Stale breadcrumbs for bulk, a generous glug of molasses for sweetness, dripping instead of butter for the crust. A single precious egg traded from the chimney sweep's wife for darning socks. As she works, she tells stories of her own childhood. Real treacle tart made with golden syrup at Christmas, the way her father would sneak her extra helpings when her mother wasn't looking. The memory glows in her voice, brighter than the firelight. The tart bakes while you're out on the afternoon's errand, collecting laundry from the Brewster household. Their maid hands you a bundle reeking of lye soap and lavender, along with a heel of fruitcake, gone a bit dry. Don't let the mistress see, the maid whispers, winking. The cake is indeed stale as parchment, but studded with candied peel and raisins that must have cost a week's wages. You pocket it carefully, already imagining your mother's surprise. Returning home, you're ambushed by a gang of street urchins, the same boys who eyed your pudding yesterday. Just a bite, demands their ringleader, a freckled terror with a knife scar across his chin. You clutch the cake tighter, adrenaline sour in your mouth. Hunger made predators of them all. You'd have done the same in their place. Next time, you lie, darting down an alley too narrow for them to follow. The tart is cooling on the windowsill when you burst in, its crust gleaming like polished mahogany. Your mother beams at the fruitcake, then gasps when you produce a second surprise. A handful of bruised plums fallen off a cart near Brewster's house. Supper is a feast of contradictions. The bone broth, rich and velvety with dissolved marrow. Day-old bread resurrected by dipping in the broth. Treacle tart so sweet it makes your teeth ache. Fruitcake crumbs sprinkled over everything like edible confetti. You eat until your stomach protests, until the coal fire dies to embers, until the plum's juice runs down your wrists like purple blood. Better than the Savoy, your mother declares, licking molasses from her thumb. The compliment is pure fantasy. Neither of you had ever set foot in London's Grand Hotel, but for tonight, the lie feels true. That night, as you drift off to the sound of rain pattering on the roof, your stomach is gloriously, uncomfortably full. The straw pokes through the mattress as always, but tonight you barely notice. Somewhere in the city, a child wails from hunger. Somewhere, a gouty lord groans from overindulgence. And here, in this cramped room where the air smells of caramelized sugar and boiled bones, you dream of a world where everyone eats this well. Wednesday arrives with a vengeance, the kind of damp, bone-chilling morning that seeps into your joints and makes every movement feel like wading through molasses. The factory whistles scream across the rooftops, their shrill voices dragging London's workers from bed whether they're ready or not. You wake to the sound of retching. Your mother kneels over the chamber pot, her body convulsing. The treacle tart, yesterday's triumph, has turned traitor in the night. Don't touch the leftovers, she gasps between heaves. The remaining tart sits on the shelf, its golden surface now speckled with ominous blue flecks. The molasses must have fermented. Food poisoning was the shadow haunting every Victorian meal. Without refrigeration, even the sweetest treats could sour overnight. Milk curdled by noon in summer heat. Butter rancidified faster than you could spread it. The poor, forced to buy cheap, questionable ingredients, bore the brunt of this daily Russian roulette. You help her wipe her mouth with a rag, then tiptoe past the contaminated tart. Breakfast is just weak tea today, the leaves reused until they're practically transparent. The warmth does little for the hollow feeling in your gut. I'll try the brewery again, you say, avoiding looking at the spoiled dessert. Hunger gnaws, but the memory of your mother's violent illness keeps your hands off the tart. Outside, the city exhales its workers in one great gray wave. Men in flat caps, women with shawls pulled tight, children still rubbing sleep from their eyes, all marching toward factories, shops, construction sites. You join the current flowing toward the river, where the Thames smells like rotting fish and coal smoke. The hiring foreman at the brewery takes one look at your slight frame and laughs. Christ, lad, you'd float away in a stiff wind. But when a gang of Irish laborers fails to show, likely still drunk from Tuesday night, he grudgingly waves you toward a mountain of barley sacks. The work is backbreaking. Each sack weighs more than you do, the rough burlap scraping your palms raw as you haul them from cart to storeroom. By midday, your arms shake with exhaustion, your stomach growling loud enough for the other workers to hear. Here, a grizzled brewer named Murphy shoves a handful of malt grains into your palm. Chew 'em slow or you'll crack a tooth. The barley is tough and earthy, but the slow-release carbohydrates steady your shaking hands. Malt, the sprouted grain used for brewing, was the Victorian workers' secret energy source. Brewery hands pocketed handfuls to stave off hunger during long shifts. Ta, you croak, pocketing extra grains for later. The brewers chuckle at your naivety. Wait till you try the hops, one jokes, ruffling your hair with a flour-dusted hand. Chew enough and you'll sleep like a baby. At lunch break, the men pull out their meals with the solemnity of card players revealing hands. Murphy has cold sausage and pickled eggs wrapped in newspaper. Another shows off a meat pie oozing gravy. You retreat to a quiet corner with your malt, soaking the grains in your tin cup of weak beer, the brewer's unofficial wages, until they soften into something resembling porridge. The afternoon brings a new horror, hop sacks. The bitter green flowers dust the air with pollen that makes your eyes water and nose run. When a sack bursts open, the foreman barks at you to save what you can. You drop to your knees, scooping handfuls of the aromatic hops into your pockets. Take some home if you want. The foreman sighs, seeing your pathetic efforts. Bloody waste otherwise. You leave the brewery at dusk with 3 pennies wages and a shirt full of hops that make you smell like a walking pub. The bitter, herbal scent clings to you like a second skin. Your mother is still pale but upright, stirring a pot of potato soup when you return. Her eyes widen at your loot. "Sleeping tonic," she exclaims, already calculating. Hops, the flour that gave beer its flavor, were also a traditional remedy for insomnia. Too bitter for tea, but a treasure for those who tossed and turned on empty stomachs. That night's supper is the most medicinal yet. Potato soup with a drizzle of malt syrup you boiled down from the grains. The last of Sunday's bread, miraculously still good. A wedge of cheese traded for darning the brewer's socks. The flavors shouldn't work, earthy potatoes and bitter malt, but your starved body doesn't care. You lick the bowl clean, then stuff a pillowcase with hops like a Victorian sleep experiment. "Tomorrow," your mother says, eyes gleaming in the firelight, "we'll make hop tea for Mrs. Wilkins." Her nerves are terrible. You fall asleep with malt-sweetened breath, the factory whistles replaced by the rhythmic drip-drip of condensation from the ceiling. Somewhere beneath the exhaustion and lingering nausea, there's a spark of triumph. Another day outwitted hunger. Thursday slinks in like a stray cat, gray, damp, and smelling faintly of the river. The hops pillow did its job too well. You wake with your mouth full of bitter pollen, your head still foggy with unnatural sleep. Downstairs, your mother is already at the hearth, poking life into last night's embers. "Up with you," she says without turning around. The butcher's dog got into the Wilkins chicken coop. There'll be feathers to pluck for a penny. You drag yourself upright, the straw mattress crackling in protest. The room smells of damp wool and the lingering herbal musk of hops. Your mother's hands move with purpose as she wraps yesterday's malt grains in muslin for thickening the soup, and portions the remaining hops into small bundles tied with string. Breakfast is a meager but strategic affair. Tea brewed from twice-used leaves. A slice of bread fried in the last scrap of dripping. A sprinkle of malt sugar salvaged from the grains. The bread's edges are nearly black, the fat long since burned away, but the malt adds a caramelized sweetness that almost makes it feel indulgent. Mind that doesn't sit heavy, your mother warns as you scarf it down. The memory of Tuesday's food poisoning still lingers in both your stomachs. The streets are slick with a fine morning mist that clings to your skin like cobwebs. You pass a street sweeper hosing down the pavement outside a grand hotel, the water swirling with last night's discarded oyster shells and cigar stubs. A scullery maid dumps a bucket of coffee grounds into the gutter for the rag pickers. She explains when she catches you staring. Nothing went to waste in London. Even aristocrats' trash became someone else's treasure. Mrs. Wilkins' backyard is a scene of carnage. Feathers drift like snow over the trampled vegetable patch, where the butcher's mastiff left 3 plump hens dead in its wake. The old widow wrings her hands as neighborhood children pluck the birds with practiced efficiency. "Tuppence if you clean the gizzards too," she offers, pressing a knife into your palm. You set to work with the other children, your fingers soon slick with cold blood and feather down. The work is grim but methodical, scalding water to loosen the feathers, careful cuts to remove the innards without rupturing the bitter gallbladder. By midday, your apron is a horror of blood and viscera, but your pocket holds 3 copper coins and a precious parcel of chicken feet for stock. On the walk home, you detour past the bakery. Mrs. Higgins is in a rare good mood, having sold out of meat pies early. "Tell your ma I've got suet scraps," she calls, tossing you a warm roll. "Free for the taking if she'll mend my good apron." The roll disappears before you've turned the corner. The soft bread and faint cinnamon taste like a stolen moment of luxury. Your mother is elbow deep in laundry when you return, the kitchen steamy with boiling linens. Her eyes light up at the chicken feet. "Jellied stock," she exclaims, already envisioning the rich gelatin they'll yield. The suet, raw beef fat, is another prize. Rendered down, it would make the flakiest pastry crusts or the most filling puddings. While the chicken feet simmer, she sends you on another errand, this time to the dockside chandlery, where sailors buy hardtack and salt pork for long voyages. The owner, a one-eyed man named Graves, pays tuppence for your mother's hop bundles. Keeps the rats from the biscuit barrels, he explains, hanging the fragrant hops next to dried chilies. You return home with a small paper cone of dried currants, fell off a shipment, Graves claimed with a wink, and the thrilling news that he'd pay for more hops if your mother could spare them. Dinner is a triumph of ingenuity. Chicken foot broth, cloudy with dissolved collagen. Dumplings made from suet and flour, bobbing like little icebergs. Currants soaked in malt syrup until they plump into jewels. The flavors are bizarre but comforting, the savory depth of the broth playing against the sudden bursts of fruity sweetness. You eat until your stomach aches, until the steam from the pot has condensed on the windows, until the last dumpling is just a memory of grease on the spoon. Better than the queen's table, your mother declares, sucking marrow from a chicken toe. The joke is as much defiance as humor, a refusal to let hardship steal all joy. That night, as you drift off to the sound of rain on the roof and the distant cry of a night soil collector, your stomach is full in a way that has nothing to do with food. The hops pillow still smells bitter beneath your cheek, but tonight it's almost comforting, a reminder that even in the darkest alleys of London, resourcefulness could bloom like stubborn wildflowers between the cobblestones. Somewhere in the city, a child cries from hunger. Somewhere, a gouty lord groans from overindulgence. And here, in this cramped room where the air smells of chicken fat and dried currants, you dream of a world where no knife is needed to clean a chicken gizzard, because no dog would ever be hungry enough to raid a coop. Friday dawns with the metallic tang of impending rain. The hops pillow has left your hair smelling like a brewery's floor, but at least you slept. A small victory in the war against exhaustion. Downstairs, your mother is already embroiled in battle with a stubborn loaf of bread, slamming it against the table to break the stalemate between knife and crust. Up, lazybones, she chides, though her voice lacks its usual bite. The coal merchant's wife wants her curtains mended before noon. You roll off the mattress, your joints popping like overripe peas. The room smells faintly of yesterday's chicken broth and the lingering herbal musk of hops. Outside, the rhythmic clop-clop of milkmaids' carts signals the city stirring to life. Breakfast is a study in contrasts. Tea, so weak it's basically hot water with memory. A slice of bread that could double as a roofing tile. A precious spoonful of currant jam salvaged from last night's dessert. The jam is the star, its vibrant purple hue and tart sweetness a brief rebellion against the monotony of poverty. You let it dissolve on your tongue like a stolen jewel. Don't dawdle, your mother warns as you savor the last bite. That coal merchant's wife has a tongue sharper than my needles. The streets are slick with last night's rain, the cobblestones gleaming like wet teeth in the dawn light. You pass a street vendor setting up his stall, his call of hot cross buns, 2 a penny, cutting through the morning chill. The spicy scent of cinnamon and candied peel makes your stomach growl, but you tighten your grip on your coins. Those buns were for the genteel poor, not the likes of you. The coal merchant's house is a soot-stained monstrosity looming over a narrow alley. His wife, a woman built like a sack of coal herself, bars your entry with a meaty arm. Wipe your feet, she commands, eyeing your patched boots with disdain. The parlor curtains are heavy brocade, frayed at the edges where cold dust has eaten into the fabric. As you stitch, the merchant's wife watches like a hawk, her beady eyes missing nothing. My Henry says your mom makes a decent meat pudding, she remarks suddenly, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You keep your eyes on your needle. Yes, ma'am. Bring one Monday, and I'll see about extra coal this winter. The unspoken threat hangs in the air, or else no coal at all. You leave with 2 pennies and a handful of spare coal nuggets she accidentally dropped into your pocket. The weight of them burns through the thin fabric, a reminder that even charity came with strings in Victorian London. The afternoon brings an unexpected windfall. On your way to the baker's, you spot a commotion outside the greengrocer's. A cart has overturned, spilling potatoes into the gutter. As the grocer curses, you and 3 other children dive to salvage what you can. Keep 'em, the grocer growls, seeing your armful of muddy spuds. Bloody things are bruised anyway. You arrive home looking like a mudlarker, but triumphant. 6 potatoes, only slightly battered, cradled in your apron. Your mother whoops with joy. already envisioning tomorrow's meal. With the coal and these, we'll eat like kings this weekend, she declares, brushing dirt from your hair. Dinner is a humble but hearty affair. Potato soup thickened with yesterday's breadcrumbs. A drizzle of precious bacon fat for richness. The last of the currants sprinkled on top like edible confetti. The flavors are comfort itself. Earthy potatoes, smoky fat, the occasional burst of sweetness. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful, the coal nuggets glowing in the hearth like a promise of warmth to come. Better than the Crystal Palace banquet, your mother declares, licking her spoon clean. The reference is pure fantasy. Neither of you had ever seen the great exhibition's famed spreads, but the sentiment is real. That night, as you drift off to the sound of rain pattering on the roof and the distant cry of a watchman, your stomach is full in a way that has nothing to do with food. The coal fire casts flickering shadows on the walls, dancing like the ghosts of better days yet to come. Somewhere in the city, a child wails from hunger. Somewhere, a gouty lord groans from overindulgence. And here, in this cramped room where the air smells of coal dust and potato skins, you dream of a world where no one barters dignity for warmth, where curtains are mended for love, not survival. Saturday arrives with the shrill cry of the rag-and-bone man's cart. Any old iron, bottles, bones, his voice slicing through the thin walls like a rusty blade. You jolt awake to find your mother already dressed, her fingers flying as she stitches the coal merchant's demanded pudding cloth. Up you get, she says without looking up. The butcher's got a fresh-killed pig today. If we're quick, we might get the lights. Lights, Victorian code for lungs, the cheapest of the cheap cuts. The thought turns your stomach, but hunger overrides disgust. You pull on your least patched shirt, fingers numb from the morning chill. Breakfast is a hurried affair. Tea brewed from leaves so exhausted they barely color the water. A scrap of yesterday's bread, now harder than a paving stone. A smear of bacon grease salvaged from the dripping pot. The grease is rancid, but your stomach doesn't care. It's calories, and calories mean survival. You choke it down as your mother ties her bonnet with grim determination. The butcher's shop is already crowded when you arrive. Working-class women jostling for the best offal. The air reeks of blood and sawdust, the floor slick with pink-tinged water. Behind the counter, the butcher, a man built like his own prize hog, wields his cleaver with terrifying precision. Lights. There you go. 3 halfpence, he bellows, slapping a slimy pink mass onto the scale. Your mother pounces like a hawk, elbowing aside a washerwoman. And the trotters, Mr. Jenkins, if you'd be so kind. The butcher eyes her with grudging respect. For you, Mrs. Smith, I'll throw in the years. You leave cradling your bounty. The lights, pale and spongy, smelling faintly of barnyard. 2 trotters, hooves still attached like grotesque jewelry. A pair of floppy ears that will fry up crisp as crackling. The walk home is a gauntlet of temptation. The bakery's window displays golden loaves you can't afford. The pieman's cart emits meaty steam that makes your mouth water. A street urchin gnaws on a stolen apple core, his eyes daring you to take it. You clutch your offal tighter and walk faster. Back in the kitchen, your mother transforms the unpromising ingredients with practiced alchemy. The lights are soaked in vinegar water to remove blood clots. Trotters scrubbed until their skin gleams like ivory. Ears boiled until the cartilage softens to gelatin. As she works, she tells you about the grand feasts of her youth. Real pork pies with proper pastry, not this sad imitation she's stitching for the coal merchant. The memory glows in her voice, brighter than the firelight. Fetch the baker's oven. She orders when the pudding is assembled. You sprint through the streets, the pudding heavy in your arms, its muslin wrapper damp with pig's blood. Mrs. Higgins barely glances up from her loaves. Back by 3 or it'll burn, she warns, shoving it into the oven's fiery maw. The wait is agony. You loiter outside the bakery, stomach growling at the aroma of rising bread. When the pudding emerges, swollen and brown, its cloth blackened in spots, you nearly weep with relief. The coal merchant's wife inspects it like a general reviewing troops. See, it's delivered proper on Monday, she sniffs, dropping 2 pennies into your palm, half what it's worth. Dinner is a celebration of scraps. Fried pig's ears, crisp as autumn leaves. Trotters boiled until the meat falls from the bone. A mash of potatoes and turnips stolen from yesterday's haul. The flavors are primitive but satisfying. The ears crunch, the trotter's unctuous fat, the mash's earthy comfort. You eat until your stomach protests, until the fire burns low, until the last greasy smear is licked from your fingers. Better than the Lord Mayor's banquet, your mother declares, gnawing a trotter bone. The lie is comforting, a shared fiction against the night's chill. That night, as you drift off to the sound of rain on the roof and the distant cry of the night watchman, your stomach is full in a way that has nothing to do with food. The coal fire casts flickering shadows on the walls, dancing like the ghosts of all the pigs that died to keep you alive. Somewhere in the city, a child wails from hunger. Somewhere, a gouty lord groans from overindulgence. And here, in this cramped room where the air smells of pork fat and wet wool, you dream of a world where no one eats lights unless they want to, where puddings aren't bartered for warmth, but given freely. Sunday dawns with church bells pealing across the soot-stained rooftops, their bronze voices momentarily drowning out the ever-present hunger. You wake to find your mother already at the hearth, her Sunday-best dress covered with a flour-dusted apron as she wrestles with the week's most sacred ritual, the Lord's Day roast. "Fetch the baker's oven," she commands without turning around. "And mind that coal merchant's pudding doesn't burn this time." You roll out of bed, your back protesting from Saturday's labor. The room smells faintly of yesterday's pork feast and the lingering metallic tang of blood. Outside, the streets are unnaturally still. No vendors crying their wares, no carts rattling over cobblestones. Even London's relentless engine paused for the Sabbath. Breakfast is a hurried but hopeful affair. Tea brewed with fresh leaves, a Sunday luxury. A slice of bread fried in precious bacon drippings. A smear of yesterday's apple butter traded for darning the vicar's socks. The apple butter is the star, its cinnamon-spiced sweetness a fleeting taste of abundance. You let it dissolve on your tongue like communion wine. Don't dawdle, your mother warns as you savor the last bite. The baker's oven won't wait for daydreamers. The streets are slick with morning dew, the rising sun painting the soot-blackened bricks in temporary gold. You pass closed storefronts and shuttered market stalls, their usual chaos replaced by an eerie quiet. Only the pubs show signs of life. Working men sneaking in a quick pint before morning service. Mrs. Higgins' bakery is a hive of Sabbath activity. The ovens roar like dragons as she shuffles parishioners' Sunday dinners in and out with military precision. Yours goes in after the vicar's joint, she barks, eyeing your modest parcel with disdain. And don't expect me to watch it for you. I've scones to mind. The wait stretches like taffy. You loiter outside the bakery, stomach growling at the aromas of roasting beef and Yorkshire pudding. When your dinner finally emerges, the cheap cut of beef shin transformed by slow heat into something resembling tenderness, you nearly weep at the sight. The walk home is a gauntlet of temptation. Through open windows, you catch glimpses of middle-class families gathering around tables groaning with food, silver glinting, crystal sparkling, joints of meat resting on fine china. Your stomach clenches, but you clutch your humble roast tighter and walk faster. Back in the kitchen, your mother performs her weekly miracle. The tough shin becomes mock venison with a sauce of vinegar and juniper berries. Yesterday's leftover potatoes are reborn as Sunday hash with fried onions. The last of the week's vegetables simmer into a soup that smells richer than its ingredients. As she works, she tells stories of childhood Sundays. Proper roast beef with horseradish sauce, treacle tart with clotted cream. The memories glow in her voice, brighter than the firelight. Dinner is served with ceremony. The venison, arranged proudly on your least chipped plate. Hash browned to perfection in the last of the dripping. Soup served in the same bowls you use every day, but somehow finer today. You eat slowly, savoring each mouthful, the flavors amplified by a week's anticipation. The meat is still tough, The vegetables still simple, but today they taste like victory. Better than Buckingham Palace, your mother declares, mopping gravy with the last crust of bread. The lie is comforting, a shared fantasy against life's hardships. That evening, as you walk to evensong, for the coal merchant's wife will be watching attendance, you pass a group of street children fighting over a discarded mutton bone. Their hollow eyes and grasping hands follow you down the lane, a stark reminder that your relative comfort hangs by a thread. The church service is a study in contrasts. The wealthy doze in their private boxes, stomachs comfortably full, while the poor kneel on hard stone, their hunger sharpened by the vicar's sermon on contentment with one's lot. The collection plate passes through your calloused hands like judgment, your mother's single farthing a drop in an ocean of silver coins. Returning home, you find your mother already planning Monday's meals, the leftover bones simmering for stock, the scraps of meat carefully wrapped in damp cloth. The Sabbath may be a day of rest, but poverty never sleeps. As you drift off to sleep, the straw mattress prickling less tonight, your stomach comfortably full, the church bells ring out one last time across the sleeping city. Somewhere, a child cries from hunger. Somewhere, a lord belches from excess. And here, in this cramped room where the air smells of roasted meat and hope, you dream of a world where Sunday's abundance isn't just a weekly miracle, but an everyday reality. Monday arrives like a debt collector, unwelcome, inevitable, and impossible to ignore. The factory whistles scream across the rooftops, dragging London's workers from their Sabbath respite back into the grind. You wake to the sound of your mother retching into the chamber pot, Sunday's roast, now turned traitor in the night. Don't touch the leftovers, she gasps between heaves. The beef sits on the shelf, its surface glistening with an ominous sheen. The shin must have spoiled. Food poisoning was the specter that haunted every Victorian meal. Without refrigeration, even the most carefully prepared dishes could sour overnight. Milk curdled by mid-morning in summer heat. Butter rancidified faster than you could spread it. The poor, forced to buy cheap, questionable cuts, bore the brunt of this daily gamble. You help her wipe her mouth with a rag, then tiptoe past the contaminated meat. Breakfast is just weak tea today, the leaves reused until they're practically transparent. The warmth does little for the hollow feeling in your gut. I'll try the docks again, you say, avoiding looking at the spoiled beef. Hunger gnaws, but the memory of your mother's violent illness keeps your hands off the leftovers. Outside, the city exhales its workers in one great gray wave. Men in flat caps, women with shawls pulled tight, children still rubbing sleep from their eyes, all marching toward factories, shops, construction sites. You join the current flowing toward the river, where the Thames smells like rotting fish and coal smoke. The hiring foreman at the docks takes one look at your slight frame and laughs. Christ, lad, you'd blow away in a stiff wind. But when a gang of Irish laborers fails to show, likely still drunk from Sunday, he grudgingly waves you toward a mountain of crates labeled Jamaican rum, property of Lamb's Navy. The work is backbreaking. Each crate weighs more than you do, the rough wood splintering your palms as you haul them from ship to warehouse. By midday, your arms shake with exhaustion, your stomach growling loud enough for the other workers to hear. Here, a grizzled docker named O'Leary shoves a ship's biscuit into your hand. Soak it in your tea or you'll break teeth. The biscuit resembles a pale, pockmarked brick. You gnaw experimentally and nearly chip a molar. Hardtack, or ship's biscuit, was the Victorian equivalent of energy bars, flour, water, and salt baked rock hard to survive months at sea. Cheap, durable, and about as appetizing as plaster. Ta, you croak, pocketing it for later. The dockers chuckle at your naivety. Wait till you try the Weevil version, one jokes, slapping your shoulder hard enough to stagger you. At lunch break, the men pull out their meals with the solemnity of card players revealing hands. O'Leary has cold sausage and pickled onions wrapped in newspaper. Another shows off a mutton pasty, oozing gravy. You retreat to a quiet corner with your hardtack, soaking it in a tin cup of overbrewed tea until it softens into something resembling edible paste. The afternoon brings a new horror, molasses barrels. Sticky, leaking, impossible to grip. You're soon coated up to your elbows in the treacly goo. When a barrel cracks open, the foreman barks at you to save what you can. You drop to your knees, scooping handfuls of the warm, fly-specked syrup into buckets. Take some home if you want. The foreman sighs, seeing your pathetic efforts. Bloody waste otherwise. You leave the docks at dusk with 2 pennies wages and a hat brimming with molasses scraped from the cobblestones. The sweet, smoky smell clings to you like a second skin. Your mother is still pale but upright, stirring a pot of onion soup when you return. Her eyes widen at your loot. Black gold, she exclaims, already calculating. Molasses, the byproduct of sugar refining, was the poor man's sweetener. Too bitter and impure for wealthy tables, but a treasure trove of calories for the desperate. That night's supper is the most surreal yet. Onion soup with a drizzle of molasses for depth. The last of Sunday's bread, miraculously still good. A slice of cheese salvaged from the uncontaminated portion. The flavors shouldn't work, savory onions and bittersweet syrup, but your starved body doesn't care. You lick the bowl clean, then scrape the molasses from your arms like a bear harvesting honey. Tomorrow, your mother says, eyes gleaming in the firelight, we'll make treacle tart. You fall asleep with sticky fingers, the factory whistles replaced by the rhythmic drip-drip of molasses from your hat onto the floor. Somewhere beneath the exhaustion and lingering nausea, there's a spark of triumph. Another day outwitted hunger. Tuesday creeps in like a stray dog, skittish, hungry, and smelling faintly of the river. The molasses has hardened overnight into a sticky crust on your hat, the sugar crystals glittering like dark jewels in the dawn light. Downstairs, your mother is already at the hearth, poking life into last night's embers with the determination of a general marshalling troops. Up with you, she says without turning around. The coal merchant's pudding won't deliver itself. You drag yourself upright, the straw mattress crackling beneath you like a nest of dried bones. The room smells of burnt sugar and wet wool, the lingering sweetness of last night's molasses mingling with the ever-present damp. Outside, the rhythmic clip-clop of the milk cart signals the city stirring to life. Breakfast is a meager but strategic affair. Tea brewed from twice-used leaves. A slice of bread fried in the last scrap of dripping. A sprinkle of molasses scraped from your hat brim. The bread's edges are nearly black, the fat long since burned away, but the molasses adds a caramelized sweetness that almost makes it feel indulgent. Mind that doesn't sit heavy, your mother warns as you scarf it down. The memory of Sunday's food poisoning still lingers in both your stomachs. The streets are slick with a fine morning mist that clings to your skin like cobwebs. You pass a street sweeper hosing down the pavement outside a grand hotel, the water swirling with last night's discarded oyster shells and cigar stubs. A scullery maid dumps a bucket of coffee grounds into the gutter for the rag pickers. She explains when she catches you staring. Nothing went to waste in London. Even aristocrats' trash became someone else's treasure. The coal merchant's house looms like a soot-stained fortress, its windows dark as coal pits. His wife, a woman built like a sack of grain, bars your entry with a meaty arm. Wipe your feet, she commands, eyeing your patched boots with disdain. The pudding is inspected with the scrutiny of a jeweler appraising diamonds. See, it's delivered proper next time, she sniffs, dropping 2 pennies into your palm, half what it's worth. The unspoken threat hangs in the air, or else no coal this winter. You leave with your coins and a handful of spare coal nuggets she accidentally dropped into your pocket. The weight of them burns through the thin fabric, a reminder that even charity came with strings in Victorian London. The afternoon brings an unexpected windfall. On your way to the baker's, you spot a commotion outside the greengrocer's. A cart has overturned, spilling potatoes into the gutter. As the grocer curses, you and 3 other children dive to salvage what you can. Keep em, the grocer growls, seeing your armful of muddy spuds. Bloody things are bruised anyway. You arrive home looking like a mudlarker, but triumphant. 6 potatoes, only slightly battered, cradled in your apron. Your mother whoops with joy, already envisioning tomorrow's meal. With the coal and these, we'll eat like kings this week, she declares, brushing dirt from your hair. Dinner is a humble but hearty affair. Potato soup thickened with yesterday's breadcrumbs. A drizzle of precious bacon fat for richness. The last of the molasses sprinkled on top like edible confetti. The flavors are comfort itself. Earthy potatoes, smoky fat, the occasional burst of sweetness. You eat slowly, savoring each spoonful, the coal nuggets glowing in the hearth like a promise of warmth to come. Better than the Crystal Palace banquet, your mother declares, licking her spoon clean. The reference is pure fantasy. Neither of you had ever seen the great exhibition's famed spreads, but the sentiment is real. That night, as you drift off to the sound of rain pattering on the roof and the distant cry of a watchman, your stomach is full in a way that has nothing to do with food. The coal fire casts flickering shadows on the walls, dancing like the ghosts of better days yet to come. Somewhere in the city, a child wails from hunger. Somewhere, a gouty lord groans from overindulgence. And here, in this cramped room where the air smells of coal dust and potato skins, you dream of a world where no one barters dignity for warmth, where puddings are made for love, not survival. Wednesday limps in like a wounded soldier, gray, exhausted, and smelling of defeat. The rain hasn't stopped for 3 days, and the damp has seeped into everything. The straw mattress prickles with mildew, the bread turns green before it can stale, and your mother's cough rattles deep in her chest like a dying engine. You wake to silence instead of her usual morning bustle. She's still abed, her face flushed with fever, her breathing shallow. The hearth is cold. No tea steeps. No porridge bubbles. Only the relentless drip-drip of rainwater through the roof into the battered saucepan below. Breakfast is a heel of bread so moldy you have to scrape it with a knife. Water from the saucepan, now diluted with rain. The last 3 raisins from Sunday's stolen fruitcake, lined up like soldiers on the plate. You force the bread down, picking off the worst of the mold. The raisins are your mother's, placed by her bedside with a cup of rainwater. She waves them away weakly. Go to the docks, she croaks. They'll need hands in this weather. Ships run aground in storms. The streets are rivers of mud and sewage. You pass a collapsed costermonger's stall, its rotten vegetables bobbing in the flood like tiny lifeboats. At the docks, chaos reigns. A coal barge has smashed into the wharf, its black cargo spilling into the Thames like a funeral procession. The foreman spots you shivering under a tarpaulin. Smith's boy? Your ma's the one who makes kidney pudding. At your nod, he tosses you a sack. Fill this with loose coal. I'll pay halfpenny per pound. And for Christ's sake, don't drown. You wade into the shallows, the icy water numbing your legs to the knees. Other children dive like otters, their arms black to the elbows as they pluck coal from the current. By midday, your sack holds 20 pounds of salvage, and your lungs burn from swallowed river water. The foreman counts out 10 pence, a fortune. Tell your ma to make 2 puddings tomorrow. My men miss her cooking. On the way home, you detour past St. Bride's Charity Kitchen. The queue stretches around the block. Hollow-eyed mothers, skeletal laborers, children with bellies swollen from hunger. The vicar spots your sodden clothes and pushes a bowl into your hands without asking. Peas porridge and a slice of bread, he murmurs. Eat half now. Take half to your mother. The porridge is thick with barley and flecks of bacon, real meat. You force yourself to stop after 3 spoonfuls, wrapping the rest in your neckerchief. The bread you save entirely. Your mother weeps when you present your treasures. The 10 pence, enough for coal all week. The charity porridge, still warm in its cloth. A single orange donated by a kind lady. In truth, stolen from the vicar's unattended basket. That night's supper is eaten in sacred silence. The porridge shared equally despite your protests. The orange peeled with ritual care, its segments bursting with summer sunlight. The bread saved for morning, wrapped in the cleanest rag. Better than any banquet, your mother whispers, her fever breaking as she sucks the orange pith for every drop of juice. Outside, the rain slows to a drizzle. Somewhere in Mayfair, a footman tosses half a roast pheasant into the gutter. You fall asleep with your mother's hand in yours, her breathing steady at last. The coal fire, Built with your salvage, paints dancing shadows on the wall. Somewhere in the city, a child starves. Somewhere, a lord vomits into a silver punch bowl. And here, in this fragile moment where the rain has stopped and the fever has broken, you understand the true arithmetic of survival. Not all feasts require silver. Not all hungers can be filled. But every mouthful stolen, salvaged, or given in grace is a rebellion. A declaration scrawled in grease and crumbs and river-wet coal. We are still here,